Welcome to this review of my worldwide foreign currency collection. So I did a review of my US currency collection, and now I'm moving on to my worldwide foreign currency collection, and I'm going to start off with some Japanese occupation notes. Alright, here you're looking at one that has 5 centavos. This was issued in the occupied territories that Japan invaded and occupied throughout Asia. And this has a fascinating story behind it. I'm going to go through a few of them. Here's one that says 5 centavos. And this is another denomination, 10 centavos. And these are over 70 years old, so they're in pretty good condition. This one has more wear to it. And it's stamped over here. Actually, this one has a watermark. If you look closely right there, it looks like a flower. You put it against the light. So this is more quality made than some of the other ones that they made. So that's a 10 pesos note. Here's a 5 pesos note. This also has a watermark. I'm going to put the flashlight through so you can see it. See right there? There's a flower that appears. This one is in quite good condition. Now, some of these notes were issued throughout Asia, throughout the occupied regions during World War II. There were many Asian countries, and they include the Philippines, Malaya, Burma, which is now Myanmar, Sarawak, which is now Malaysia, North Borneo, Singapore, Brunei, Oceania, which is New Guinea and the Solomon and Gilbert Islands, the Dutch East Indies, which is now Indonesia and Brunei. So these were issued throughout these countries. There's a 10 peso note. This is 1 peso. Very good condition. This one is stamped. Imagine what these countries were going through, because what happened was the Japanese confiscated money, raw materials, bullion, foreign currencies from first world countries, and they used it to finance the war. They needed materials, they needed food, so in its place they issued their own currency, and in situations like this it usually doesn't turn out too well. And what happened was they went from lower denominations, which I just went through, to higher denominations. As you can see here, I have a 100 peso note. And as shortages continued, when you have a war-torn country that's under occupation, you have shortages. And with shortages, you have higher prices. When you have higher prices, they kept on printing money, and they started to print it with higher denominations to pay for goods that cost more, but of course that doesn't work because the money turns worthless, and that is what happened. A lot of this currency was issued in the Philippines, and Filipinos used to call it Mickey Mouse money. At the end of the war, they actually had piles of these notes all over the streets. They were just dumped there, and they were just worthless. It's an amazing story. Particularly in the Philippines, over $20 million in foreign cash, bullion, were confiscated by the Japanese and used to finance the war. This particular note is from Burma, which is now Myanmar. The Japanese occupied it, and they issued, under the Japanese occupation, they issued this note. They issued notes, and here's one of them. This is a half rupee. This was issued in Malaya. This is one of the occupied territories. As you can see, it was all the way up to $1,000. Inflation was getting so out of control, they had to create higher denominations as the money was losing more value and goods were becoming scarce. You were getting hyperinflation. So this is a $1,000 note, and this was issued in 1942. You can see there's an ox cart in the center. pulled by oxen. And this particular note is in really good condition. This looks uncirculated. Okay, here are some more. This one is worn. So this must have been used by the people under occupation. Very interesting. This was a currency that was actually functioning for a time based on the wear on this note. These countries were under occupation for several years. This one looks like it wasn't in circulation. It's very clean. And here's one probably from Burma. They use rupees over there, like the one I showed you before. This is 5 rupees. This looks like it was never in circulation either. The paper that some of these are printed on are not quality either. They even said that they printed so many of these that they even ran out of ink. They had to dilute the ink and use something else to print because of shortage of resources that they had. It takes a lot of money to finance a war. Here's another one. It has some staining, but it doesn't look like it was circulated. If it was, very little. It's quite clean. Okay, this is a quarter rupee from Burma. This looks like it was never circulated. Here's another one from Burma. It has fractional serial letters. This is from 1942. This is from Malaya. Fractional block letters that are on this note. This is from 1942. And this looks so clean. Very, very clean note. Doesn't look like this was in circulation. This is from 1942. This is from Malaya, when they occupied Malaya. Here's another one from Malaya. This is a 10-cent note. Okay, this one has a fold in it. This one looks like it was circulated somewhat. This is from Burma, a higher denomination note of 100 rupees. This is from 1942. There's some staining over there. Otherwise, it's in pretty good condition. There's a temple here, right on the right of the note. This is from 1942. I talk about where this one looks like it was really used a lot. So this must have been early in the occupation. See, inflation takes time. Hyperinflation doesn't happen right away. So I guess these were really used a lot, you can just tell. So obviously this was considered to have value, as opposed to the other ones where you can see they look like they were never even used. But you see the wear on this note throughout. This is from 1942. It's a lower denomination note. So that indicates that this had more value early on, because they started to bump up the denominations to higher amounts because of hyperinflation. That's what happens. And this is what happens during times of crisis. If you look at Zimbabwe, they had $1 trillion note at one point. So it starts out with small denominations and then it goes up. This one is stamped. Let's look at the reverse. It's stamped on the reverse as well. And you can see in the center, this is what you call a plantation scene. This is an interesting note because it has a lot of wear. And when a note has wear and has character, you could just imagine the people that were using this at the time. It was a very, very tough time to be under occupation during World War II. And this was quite used a lot, going through the hands of desperate people. Very, very interesting. And this is from the Philippines, 1942. So these are similar. This one has no stamp on the front, but it has a stamp on the back. Okay, right here is another note. This actually has wear. Not a lot of wear, but it was used, you can tell. It has folds, some wear on the corners, some staining. And this was used in the Philippines. 100 pesos. This is another occupation note from 1942 from occupied Malaya. You can see bread and fruits at the left, coconuts at the right over here. Let's look at the reverse. This is a very clean note. There's a little staining, but otherwise very clean. Now this is a very interesting note right here. This is a China-Japanese occupation note of 5 yen. The story behind this, December of 1937, there was an assault division from the Japanese army. They marched out of their bases in Manchuria and invaded China. And they crushed virtually all Chinese resistance. And in 6 months, a large area of northern China, Chinese communist troops under Mao Zedong struck back in a guerrilla war. And that will last for years. The Japanese were never dislodged from China until the end of World War II. During Japan's long occupation of China, and as well, they had occupation notes that were issued, including this note that you see right here. So this is an amazing piece of history that you're looking at right here. This was issued from Japan in China, in occupied China. 5 yen. And that's actually the currency that the Japanese use today, is the yen. Very interesting. And this has some wear on it. This was actually used by the people under occupation. Interesting symbols. Imagine what was going on. Those wars were so brutal, so tough during that particular time. The war between China and Japan. This is a very interesting note. The paper is better quality than some of the other notes that they issued during the occupation of the Asian countries. Some are better than others. Right here is a 1941 100 yuan note. As you can see at the bottom, it says Security Banknote Company. And that's Sun Yat-sen right there. Okay, right here is a 1 peso note. This is a Japanese occupation note, 1 peso, from the early 1940s. It's stamped right here. This one has some wear, so it has been used and circulated during that time. And this is a small note, as you can see, quite small. It's an Indonesian note. And you can see there's a female soldier there. And there's the reverse. From Indonesia, 1964. This is uncirculated condition. Very clean note. It looks uncirculated. This is a really small note. Very interesting. 1 cent, Hong Kong. And it looks like this was issued during the time where Great Britain occupied Hong Kong. And this is also interesting. There's nothing on the reverse. Paper doesn't feel like it's quality. This is a Chinese note. And nothing on the back. Also, it doesn't feel like the paper is that good quality. And this is from Bulgaria. It does have watermarks. You can see on the outside of the paper, when I put the light there, you can see watermarks that appear. This is from China. It's a large note. 50 yuan, 1941. The Farmers Bank of China. And this one is issued from the American Banknote Company. As you can see, boats near a bridge at center, front and back. Okay, here's another large note. This is from 1940. Sun Yat-sen at the left, and this is they call this the Temple of Heaven. $1940, Sun Yat-sen at left, and Temple of Heaven, call that Bank of China. Okay, here's a note from Occupied China, Japanese military issue, 10 yen. Now this was 1938. The Japanese were in a war with China before the official start of World War II, which was 1939, and this was issued for all occupied China. This really is a historical issue. And it's worn. This looks like it was used a lot during the occupation. $1937. Sun Yat-sen. And here's a skyscraper. Thomas D. LaRue and Company, Limited, London. These notes were issued. Different kinds of banknote companies, it appears. Okay, here's a note from China, 1937. Skyscraper right there. This one has a watermark. As you can see right there, it looks like a temple. Some structure. This is 10 yuan. The Temple Palace of China. This has a watermark right here. There's a figure that appears, as you can see right there. They leave that area empty, so the watermark appears. That's interesting. And this is from 1936. This is from 1936, from China. Another watermark right there. You can see a temple behind the trees. Okay, here's a 5 yuan note from China, 1935. This is a scene of agriculture and temple in the center. Now here's an interesting one. This is like a vertical note. 1930. The Central Bank of China. 20 customs gold units. Okay, right here is another vertical note. 5 customs gold units. 1930. This is from Mexico. And this is in really good condition. This looks uncirculated, and it's from 1915, so this is an older note. With National Coat of Arms at center. This is a revolutionary note. 50 centavos. This is a Mexico revolutionary note, 25 centavos from 1913. This looks like it was used quite a lot. It looks like they attempted to reattach it. This looks like it was used quite a lot. You could see a black seal on the back. Here's an interesting note. This is a Philippines guerrilla 1942 World War II emergency and guerrilla currency. Bohol province. 50 centavos. And lawful currency of the Philippines. Bohol Emergency Currency Board. This was not occupational currency. This was currency used by the Philippines during the time when the Japanese were using the occupational currency. That's quite interesting. So they had another currency going on at the same time. This is from Canada, $1. New Zealand, $2. This is from the Dominican Republic. South African Rand. Nigeria. And Bulgaria. As you can see right here, there's a watermark. You can see the hammer and the sickle right there. Yeah, Bulgaria was under communist rule. Currency really tells a story of what was going on in a particular location. It tells a story of the times. It's very interesting. Here's a note from Korea. $1962. This looks uncirculated. This is from Turkey. $1970. This is from Bolivia. 1982. This is called the House of Liberty. There is a watermark here. The watermark is the same person that's pictured here. Here's a note. It was issued from 1976 to 1978. General San Martin. This looks like it's uncirculated. Here's a note from Paraguay, 1952. You can see a girl holding a jug, and this is the Hotel Guaranian, right here. Here's a note from Yugoslavia, uncirculated, 1944, and it was issued during the Yugoslavian resistance. You can see a soldier right there. Yeah, the currency really reflected the times. That's what makes currency collecting so interesting. It's a small note as well. Here's a note from Greece. This is when they used the drachma. Now they use the euro. This is from 1944. You can see at the center, the Parthenon frieze. This is from Greece. A small note. This is from 1940, and you can see an ancient coin depicted right here. And this is a university building. Okay, so now, if you take a look at this, it says 1 million pengo. That's the currency that they used in Hungary. And this was obviously an inflation currency. So it was a very high denomination, million Pengo. And this was issued in 1946. They called it an inflation currency. Hungary at that time was going through a lot of inflation. Now this is 100 million Pengo. This is from Hungary, issued in 1946. Right here is the Parliament House. Here's a note from Hungary, issued in 1946, post-World War II. This was inflation currency, 10 million Pengo. It's a large note. Here's a note from Hungary from 1945, 1 million Pengo. This is interesting. Here's a note from Hungary from 1945. It has a stamp that's attached to it. I'll give you a closer look at that. And here is a note from Hungary from 1930. This is 100 Pengo, and you can see the government headquarters in Budapest, right here. Okay, this is from 1909. This is a Russian banknote, 10 rubles. This is in immaculate condition. This is uncirculated. 1909. This is 111 years old. It's a large banknote. Vertical. Right here is a note from Russia, 1909, 10 rubles. This is in crisp, uncirculated condition. And it's 111 years old. An odd looking note. Vertical. Looks more like a small poster. Very interesting. Here's a note from Russia, 1919. This is over 100 years old. This is crisp, uncirculated condition. 1,000 rubles. And that's it. So this was my world foreign currency collection. I hope you found the video enjoyable. If you have, please like this video, please share, please subscribe. Feel free to leave comments, let me know what you think. Thank you for tuning in.